Welcome back to part 2. Next up, we're going to look at role conflict. As individuals, we don't just take up one role. As individuals, most of us don't just take up one single role. In fact, all of us take up several roles in different social groups. We have different responsibilities to all of these social groups. For example, I have my responsibility as a son, as a father, as a lecturer, as a Malaysian, as a member of society. What happens when these roles conflict with each other? And sometimes we may have to choose. An individual who is occupying more than one status at a time and who is unable to enact the roles of one status without violating those of another status is encountering a role conflict. Let's just say, as a lecturer, I'm supposed to work this Saturday. I'm supposed to go to a place and give a talk and promote the university. But what if this Saturday is also my mother's birthday or my son's birthday? Which role should I prioritize? What if your religion conflicts with your role in society? What if you're a Catholic who believes that abortion is wrong, but also a feminist who also believes that it is a woman's right to choose whether to have an abortion or to give birth to the child? When it comes to these kind of situations, we kind of have to choose, prioritizing one role over another and possibly neglecting the responsibilities of the other role. The roles that we take up comes with different responsibilities and expectations of us. We are expected to behave or act in a certain way depending on our roles. Sometimes we are expected to role play. What is role playing? The roles we play can have a profound influence on both our attitudes and our behavior. Playing a new social role often feels awkward at first, and we may feel that we are just acting or pretending to be something we are not. When you take up a new job, such as a salesperson or a marketing executive or a waiter, you are supposed to behave in a certain way. For example, when I was in college, I did part-time work as a barista in Starbucks. When working as a barista in Starbucks, you are expected to be friendly, polite. You're kind of expected to greet every person, whether he or she is a customer or not. Every person who walks by, you're supposed to say, "Welcome to Starbucks. Good morning, sir. How are you doing, sir? Iced coffee for you, sir. Would you like to try our Ice Grande Caramel Macchiato?" This is not how we normally behave as a person, but it is expected of us when we take up the job. If you've been to the clothing store Uniqlo, I'm pretty sure you've heard the staff going, "Welcome to Uniqlo, welcome to Uniqlo." This of course stems from Uniqlo being a Japanese company. It comes from the Japanese custom of saying "Irashaimase" or "Welcome. We are happy to see you here" whenever someone comes into the store. In our daily life, whether it be joining a class in a university or getting a new job in a new company or making new friends, we become part of a group. The word group is often used for almost any occasion when two or more people come together. In sociology, however, we use different terms for various collections of people, not all of which are considered groups. Groups consist of a number of people who have common identity, some feeling of unity, and certain common goals and shared norms. A social group has a purpose and is therefore important to its members, who know how to tell an insider from an outsider. When you become a student at Xiamen University, you are given a student ID and a t-shirt to identify which university you're from. As a Malaysian, you have an identity card, an IC, to prove that you are Malaysian. As a Star Wars fan, I frequently use terms like "May the Force be with you" or "The Force is with me." Different groups have different ways of identifying themselves. Here are 6 characteristics of social groups. In sociology, in order to be characterized as a social group, there need to be a permanence beyond meetings of members, that is, even when members are dispersed. Outside of class, do you still talk to each other? Do you still go out and have lunch? There needs to be a means of identifying members. This can be through a student number, or even your name on the attendance list, or even a badge, or a nickname. Mechanisms for recruiting new members. No one is expected to be in a group forever. So in order to maintain the group, it is important for other group members to recruit outsiders to join the group. This is to ensure that the group members don't get lesser and lesser, and eventually the group would just fade away. Social groups need to have goals and purposes. When you become part of a social group, you acquire a social status and roles, that is, norms for behavior. There needs to be means of controlling members' behavior. When you're part of a social group, you're kind of expected to control your behavior and not bring shame to the group. Now, what about groups of people who don't share a common goal, or they don't have relationships with each other outside of the meeting? We use the term social aggregate to describe people who temporarily happen to be in physical proximity to each other but share little else. When you're waiting at the bus stop for the bus, or when you're standing in the train waiting for your stop, you don't share much in common with the people who are around you other than the fact that you are in the same train. Most of you are not going to the same destination. Most of you don't have the same purpose. Most of you don't even know each other. In this situation, we call this group of people a social aggregate and not a social group. Although we participate in different groups in our daily life, we have what we call our primary group and our secondary group. Primary groups involve interaction among members who have an emotional investment in one another and in a situation who know one another intimately and who interact as total individuals rather than through specialized roles. To put it simply, primary groups are groups of people that you are close to. They can be your best friends, they can be your family members, they can be part of this group that you hang out with all the time. Secondary groups is characterized by much less intimacy among its members. It usually has specific goals, it's usually formally organized, and is impersonal. These are basically groups that you get together for a single purpose, but you don't really have a relationship or do anything else outside of the group. This can be people that you go to the same class with but don't really know each other, or it can be members of your yoga or tai chi class that you go to, that you say hi and bye to each other, but you don't really interact with each other outside of the class. The difference between primary and secondary groups lies in the kinds of relationships their members have with one another. Do you call yourselves friends or acquaintance or colleague? Can you be friends with your teachers or your doctor or the waitress who serves you your food? Now, let's have a look at some of the functions of groups. In order to function properly, all groups, both primary and secondary, must perform certain tasks. First, they must define boundaries. Group members have ways of knowing who belongs to the group. Sometimes it's obvious signs such as uniforms, badges, hairstyles. Others not so obvious ones include gestures and languages. Some group members may have unique ways that they may dress or speak. For example, cosplay groups or fan clubs. If you are a Harry Potter fan, for example, you are expected to know certain things about the Harry Potter character or the Harry Potter stories. Choosing leaders. All groups must grapple with the issue of leadership. A leader is someone who occupies a central role or position of dominance and influence in the group. While it is important to listen and take into account everyone's opinion, ultimately someone must make a final decision. This is where it is important to have a leader. A good leader, whether it be the CEO of a company or the president of a football club, listens to their members but ultimately will make their own decision. In groups, there are frequently two types of leadership roles. First up, you have your instrumental leadership, in which a leader actively proposes tasks and plans to guide the group towards achieving its goals. Now, this is the type of leader who will guide the group forward. This is the type of leader that you want for your company, for your assignment group. He's the type of leader who would constantly come up with new ideas and fresh perspectives on how to make the team better at achieving its goals. And then you have your expressive leadership, a leadership who works to keep relations among group members harmonious and morale high. This is the type of leader that you want in your group of friends. Although instrumental leadership skills is important, it is also important to have a leader with expressive leadership skills, to be able to communicate with each member, find out what motivates each member, and use that motivation to push the member to become better. Another function of a group is to make decisions. This is usually done by consensus, in other words, voting. A team should also set up goals. What is the purpose of the team? Goals can be very general or very specific. Goals can change. Examples of goals can be, for example, to do charity activities or to do promotional activities. Or it can be very general, such as having a gathering, having lunch or having dinner to improve relationships between members. Assigning tasks. If there are no tasks, a group is just making contact. Tasks can be as simple as making idle chit-chat, doing household chores, or even delegating tasks in a project. The whole point of having a group rather than being in an individual is to have each member do different tasks in order to complete the job much faster. Another important thing for groups to do is to control members' behaviors. If group members are not controlled, the group will cease to exist. Groups encourage conformity. Primary groups tend to be more tolerant than secondary groups, but their punishments tend to be more severe. What about bad apples? Whether it be just joining a meeting or joining group activities on a regular basis, it is important for a group to be at least somewhat active in the group activities. If not, then it wouldn't be any difference whether they are a member of the group or not. It is also important for groups to put out some sort of punishment or some sort of restriction for members who do not follow the group rules. Without any form of punishment or control or restriction, you might start to have some bad apples in the group. Bad apples refers to group members who, because of lack of control and punishment, they may start doing their own thing and not following the rules. And what happens when you have a bad apple in a basket full of good apples and you do not get rid of the bad apple and you do not do anything to the bad apple? Bad apples will spread. The more members see that there is no punishment or nothing bad happens to the bad person, the more likely they are to follow the bad person or the bad apple. Finally, we look at reference groups. Every social group, whether it be family members or friends or even school, have their reference groups. Reference groups are a group or social category that an individual uses to help compare and define beliefs, attitudes, values, and to guide behavior. Reference groups also provide a comparison point against which people measure themselves and others. They are often a category that we identify it rather than a specific group that we belong to. Reference groups may be positive or negative. Positive reference groups consist of people that we want to emulate, people that we want to be like, people that we respect, people that we aspire to be. Negative reference groups provide a model of those people that we do not wish to follow. Who are the people that you don't want to be like? Who are the people that you disrespect or look down upon? Reference groups, whether it be positive or negative, gives us a very good idea on what our future looks like. They help us set goals on what to aim for in the future. When we talk about social groups, we have small groups and we have large groups. But what is considered a small group? What is considered a large group? Small groups include many types of social groups, such as families, peer groups, and work groups that actually meet together and contain few enough members so that all the members know one another. The smallest group possible is a dyad, consists of only 2 members. Here are some examples of dyads. You have 2 best friends, 2 TV co-hosts. When you see the word co-something, co-director, co-writer, co-teacher, when someone says, I'm co-teaching or I'm co-writing something, it means that they are doing it or they are doing their job with another person. 2 siblings, a Manzai team. Manzai Team are basically Japanese comedians who typically perform on stage as a team of 2 people. They follow a very specific formula in comedy where they will have the straight man and the funny man. The straight man is the normal person, or in most cases the person that we identify with, whereas you will have the funny man, who's usually the silly character who acts stupid and makes up jokes that usually the straight man would get angry or correct by hitting the person on the head or by smacking the person. You have a couple, such as a boyfriend and girlfriend or a husband and wife, and then you have co-pilots. Now these are examples of dyads. The whole point of being in a dyad is so that we can complement each other. If I ever make a mistake, my partner would be the one who would help me cover up my mistake or help me fix my mistake. If my partner were to forget something, it is my job to try to help them remember. This is the whole point of being part of a team. But what happens when you add 1 additional member into your 2-member group, making it a 3-member group? We have what we call a triad. A triad is a small social group that consists of 3 members. The addition of a 3rd member creates uncertainty because it introduces the possibility of a 2 against 1 alliance. Compared to a dyad, where 1 member can argue with the other member on equal ground, the introduction of a 3rd member can cause certain uncertainties. However, triads are also more stable in those situations where 1 member can help resolve quarrels between the other 2. When 1 member is arguing with another member, the 3rd member can help mediate the argument or provide a 3rd opinion. What happens as groups get larger? From small startup companies that begin with 2 or 3 members that grow to 10 members, 20 members, 30, 40, 50, or even 100 members. What happens when a company gets bigger and bigger? As a group gets larger, it will lead to the formation of subgroups or even splinter groups. These groups are typically organized and/or controlled using some form of bureaucracy. Let's talk about subgroups and splinter groups. As groups get larger and larger, some of the members may decide to form their own smaller groups. They may have different aims or goals compared to the larger group, but they still belong to the same large group. A splinter group is a group of people who have left a group or organization or form a new separate one. Some members of a group may end up being dissatisfied or unhappy with the current leadership or direction of a group, and they may break apart from the existing group and form their own group. Some examples may include certain religious groups who are unsatisfied with their current direction or leadership and decide to form their own groups. And finally, we look at bureaucracy. What is bureaucracy? According to Robert Merton, bureaucracy is a formal, rationally organized social structure with clearly defined patterns of activity in which ideally every series of actions is functionally related to the purposes of the organization. In other words, for social groups, especially the bigger organizations that may have more than 20 or 30 or 50 or even 100 people inside the group, they may create a certain system that everybody needs to follow. They may unite people under different groups that all serve the organization in one way or the other. Most companies may have a human resource department, a marketing department, an admin department, a finance department. Now, all of these departments have their own function, but at the end of the day, they serve the same purpose to make the organization better. Max Weber outlined 6 characteristics of bureaucracies. First and foremost, he argued that a clear-cut division of labor is necessary in a bureaucracy. Basically, every individual should be assigned to a different department and given a very specific or a particular job. A hierarchical delegation of power and responsibility. Every department or subdivision under the larger group should have some kind of hierarchy. Like, for example, there should be the regular executives working under an assistant manager, and that assistant manager may report to a senior manager. This helps avoid confusion and helps organize work in a more organized manner, as at the end of the day, everyone in that division reports to one person, and that one person will have to report to someone higher on the hierarchy. There should be rules and regulations. Without rules and regulations, without SOPs, standard operations procedure, people wouldn't know what to do. There would be chaos. People might start causing trouble. And everything would be so messy. Impartiality, in other words, neutrality. No matter what your relationship is with the other person in the group, he or she should be treated equally, given a fair compensation or salary depending on the amount of work that they do. Employment based on technical qualifications. Instead of hiring someone because of your relationship with them or because you like someone, people should be hired based on their technical qualifications. What makes a person qualified to do a job? Is it the years of experience that they have doing the same job? Or is it the area of specialization that they have done in college? And finally, distinction between public and private spheres. Basically, what this says is that we should never mix our private life with our public life. What we do during our own private time, outside office hours, should be our own business. The company has no right to control or dictate what we do with our own private time. The same applies. During office hours or during time that you're supposed to be working, you're not supposed to be doing any personal activities. You're supposed to be fully concentrated on your job because that's what the company hires you for, that's what the company pays you for. That's it for today's lecture. I hope you learned something valuable about the way human beings communicate and the roles that we play in society. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me via email or on the Moodle page. I'll see you next week.